Hey everyone, I am Joseph Altuzarra, and I am coming to you live from the Mental Health Coalition Instagram handle. And I'm super excited today because my very good friend Kenneth Cole, who started the Mental Health Coalition, asked me to do a talk. I am going to be joined by Nicole Richie, who is going to mental health and our journeys and sort of what we've been through over the last few months. Hey, Nicole.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about this.
Me too. I'm so excited to see you.
I'm so excited to see you. I hate that this has been our only form of communication for over a year.
I know.
Not
Nicole,
lives, but
have a little bit of
screen to
like
screen.
an informal book club.
Yes, we
Um,
do. We
we're
do.
both big readers and we FaceTime each other. And we've been checking in with each other a bunch really over the last like year and a half.
I would actually go as far to say that that's kind of how we bonded. I think we've known each other for some time, and we were both shooting a show together 2 summers ago in
Yeah.
Paris, and but we had bonded over it was when we started talking about reading. Like that's what
Yeah.
really it took our
And
friendship
true
to
story,
another level.
one of my favorite Nicole stories. We were shooting in Paris, this TV show, and Nicole like took me aside, and I'm from Paris, so I know Paris well. I grew up in Paris. And Nicole was like, "Where is it a thing that I could go by the riverbanks and read a book by myself? And if
I was
so,
like,
where?"
where can I go that's not like a spot that I can
And I
just
was like, "Yes,
be
that
by
is a thing."
myself and read?
And I love that about you. And actually, I thought that was like a moment when I was like, "Yes, this is my person." Um, but actually, I think that's a pretty good segue into um, talking about mental health. I know that you have such a crazy busy lifestyle. How did you sort of deal with stress and sort of your own mental health journey pre-COVID?
I feel like I come off as an extrovert. And RuPaul gave me a really good line. He said, I am an introvert disguised as an extrovert. And that's exactly who I am.
Yeah,
I am a true introvert. It's something that, I had to really like, that was something I had to discover about myself. And that was its own journey. But, I think like one of the strongest parts of that for me is that I need time to refresh. I
yeah,
need downtime. I need time to be alone. And this is past like going to dinners and going to parties. Yes, of course. But this is even honestly, it's even being a wife and being a mom. Like I know that I operate better when I have time um, for myself, and it's just become part of my self-care that I've had to prioritize because that is how I can bring to the table my best self.
yeah,
Socially I get drained very easily, and I have friends who are totally fine. They can go from a dinner to work the next day and then a lunch and then a this and a that, and it's no problem for them.
yeah,
And for a long time I was like, I was like, why is it that we all go the same places and then I come home and I'm like want to stay in bed for a day and no one else does? Like what, and started, I like wasn't feel I was like, is something wrong with me? But I think over time, people have really started just talking about their own
yeah.
rhythms and their own feelings, and then you discover you're like, oh, okay, this is okay. I am this type of person. This is what I need, and so that's what I do.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. I definitely feel the same way. And I think, I mean, I've sort of had my own, journey with mental health, and we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things I didn't take time for myself a lot of time, and I think it sort of caught up to me. I think the stress and pressure of owning a business and being in the fashion industry at a certain point really got to me. And about 3 years ago, it all sort of came to a head, and started. I had a really bad panic attack, and I was in my house. I was sleeping, and I woke up, and I felt like I was having a little bit of a heart attack. Um, I didn't wake up my husband. I went to the kitchen, and I didn't know what to do, and my sort of body was feeling, it felt really foreign. I felt like my thoughts were just kind of totally out of control. And it lasted for a while, maybe about an hour. And I did everything. I didn't really know what was happening, which was really scary. And I should have woken up my husband. But that I think, was a wake-up call for me. And it got me on, I think it got me thinking about my mental health a lot more, which I'd never thought about. It also was something that was never discussed in my family. And
Because is it a combination of your culture and that you grew up in Paris? I mean,
I think
was
so. I
that,
think that my dad isn't super open about sort of his feelings and his vulnerability. I don't think it's something that my mom really discusses either, and it's never something that we talked about as a family. And I started having these sort of recurring panic attacks over a few months, and a lot of it was anticipatory anxiety, and it would happen in the middle of the day, and it was so crippling. And honestly, really, really scary, because, I mean, I think we've talked about this, but, I had moments when I felt like when I was having a panic attack, I would just be spiraling, and all of a sudden feel like I would have a thought come in my head, and the thought would be like, I need to jump out the window, and I
yeah.
would know not a real thought. I mean, it wasn't a thought that I needed to act on, but it was very, very scary. And I thought that this kind of cycle would never end. And that's when I started going to therapy. And interestingly, with my family, I started talking about it with my family. And I was a little, I was scared to talk to them about it. And my dad, interestingly, was like, oh, actually, that happened to me. That happens to me sometimes. And it actually opened up this really nice dialogue in our family about mental health and about therapy and about talking to people. And I felt a, you know, a tremendous amount of shame around, you know, these episodes, and the fact that I had to go to therapy, and the fact that, I I was being put on medication. And actually, and this is why I'm so, this mental health coalition is so, I feel like it's so important. The more I talked about it with people, and with you and, my friends and my family, the more I realized actually everyone is going through their own journey, and it's important to sort of destigmatize the sort of the idea of mental health, as a sort of issue.
Yeah, I think that I think it's really interesting that you say that, because I think there is this common thought that everything should be okay. And then if something's wrong, then you go to therapy and they fix it.
Yeah.
And I read a book. I read a book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed, and this is not word for word, but basically what she said is that her whole life she thought that life was supposed to be easy and happy, and that when something was wrong, you go and fix it, and that she had to completely change her way of thinking because that's not the point of life. Life is hard, and it has ups, it has downs, and you know whatever we are given, it's not happening to us, it is happening for us. And those are the moments when we're growing, when we're evolving, and we are molding into the people that we are. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's important to have communication and language around those moments in your life. Otherwise, you're shutting half of your whole soul out. You are rejecting half of yourself. So,
Yeah.
and that's why I think like it's really important to, um, if you are seeing a therapist, I would, I always tell my friends, even in marriage counseling or whatever, I'm like, you should go when things are good. You should
Yeah.
actually go like when things are good, because I find that when you can talk about things that are coming up when they're not actually happening, then what you do is you develop the tools to deal with them later, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we really need, is we need tools. It's not about avoiding the bad times. It's about having the tools to really get through them and to
Yeah.
lean into pain and fear and anxiety, um, what people do, like for example, I was a self-medicator when I was younger. That is how I coped with my anxiety. That doesn't mean just because I'm now older and I don't do drugs anymore, that doesn't mean that I don't have anxiety. I still have anxiety. I have different ways of dealing with that,
Yeah.
and so basically what I'm saying is it's important to talk about all of it. It's important to lean in to all of it. And, it's okay actually to, in this moment of like, I think social media also can really, it's like you want this kind of tied together wrap up at the end. Like, this happened to me, but you know what? Like, I've decided that it's because of this and it's because of this, and I have it all figured out. And that's not really how pain works, right?
Yeah.
Can stay with you for a while. It actually is, it's capable of staying with you your whole life, really.
Yeah.
So it's about like actually allowing the space for yourself to say, I'm really upset today, or I'm having a very vulnerable day, or I'm panicking, I'm having a little bit of anxiety, and it's actually better for me to stay home if you can, or just maybe not do all the things that instead of being like I'm gonna fight it. Just, I think it's okay to give yourself that space to be like, I need to feel today. And
Yeah.
no one could give me permission to do that other than myself.
Yeah.
And so I had to, really make the decision that I was going to give myself permission to have days to feel.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Um, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, which we have talked about kind of offline. We both are business owners, and the obviously the last year and a half have been has been really difficult, and I think one of the ways in which I've personally struggled, um, over the last, kind of during the pandemic, was um, was kind of dealing with this, the idea um, of how my life was going to look after all of this, and kind of
Yeah.
how this had kind of disrupted my plan, and it kind of had upended my life in a way, and had sort of all of a sudden things that were really important didn't seem that important anymore, or the path that I thought I was on wasn't there anymore. And I think it was really difficult for me to talk through a lot of these feelings without really feeling like a failure,
Yeah.
and feeling like I wasn't being successful, because I wasn't following my plan. How, is that something that you thought about during the last year?
Yeah, and I very obviously very well remember our FaceTimes
Yeah.
during that whole moment. And we had some really deep talks, and I do think that there is pressure when you are a business owner. There were people that were really, shifting their business, and it was quick, it was fast, and they had, figured out how to reshift and move forward, and they were going to do it. And I think that it does become difficult as a business owner to really say, I'm unsure, or I feel really vulnerable right now. Like, and I think especially in the industry that we're in, there is this, kind of attitude where you do just have to have it all together. And I was really thankful for you in that moment, because there weren't a lot of people that I could, talk about what we were talking about with. Like, we were having some real moments, and we'd be on FaceTime and we would say something and then we would pause, and just kind
Yeah.
of take that in. And it was really helpful and refreshing, because I admire you so much, and I love your brand so much. And it was it was really great to be able to share my vulnerabilities with somebody, and know that it was not coming from that you weren't judging me.
Yeah.
And actually, I think, like, when you do find a friend that you can open up to, you're going to, at one point, somebody is going to say, oh, I feel that way too. And sometimes
Yeah.
that's
And
what
it
we
was,
need, you know?
I, I feel totally the same way. I think, um, and it's, our friendship has really kind of blossomed into such a beautiful thing. And really, there wasn't really anyone else I was talking to about this. I think you have sort of, it's a hard topic to talk about in general, but it's also the fact that you're also a business owner and you understand the industry and you understand this, like, the sort of, um, the pressures and that a lot of people are feeling. But I was so thankful to have your friendship, was really special. And honestly, I think that's, half the battle in dealing with these kinds of issues and going on a mental health sort of journey, is having someone you can talk to
Yeah.
openly, and who isn't going to judge you, and who you can sort of say things to that you're almost kind of afraid to say to yourself, and just having that other
Yes.
sort of on the end of the line, and who is, just, hearing you, is really special, I think.
And I think one of the positive things for me, that I've experienced over the past year, is that the people that I have been communicating with, the people that I've been seeing and spending time with, it's been so purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, a couple months ago, okay, okay, we're both negative, and it's an effort. Or, you and you live in New York, I live in LA, we're not able to see each other, so we make time to get on a FaceTime and have that screen to screen, face to face moment. And I think, like, you both come in equally, right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, we have both, like, put aside time to speak to each other because we both really want to. This is not just me being at a fab party and seeing Joseph Altuzarra and being like, hey babe, double kiss, da 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 da, because
Yeah.
that's the mode that you can get into in the, and you're like, oh yeah, I saw this person, I saw that person. And so it has been really nice to to kind of see and discover who you're gravitating towards and why. And the first question that my friends and I have been saying to each other, or a family member or whoever, is, how are you?
Yeah.
And those three words have kind of been lost, you know, pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
2015 to 2020, you know, just with, it's just been fast, 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 fast. And definitely if someone says, how are you? You're not going to say, oh, let me give you a
Yeah.
real answer, you know? I think if you did, someone would be like, are you okay? But I think now, you know, we are in a moment where we're saying, how are you? How has it been? And I hope that we don't lose that. I hope that that stays, because we do need a check-in. We do need people to ask us how we are,
Yeah.
because I think everyone's on some level trying to save face and just be
Yeah.
okay and power through and do it all. And I've got, you know, marriage and kids and a career and this and that. Yes, but everyone needs to be asked how they are. Everyone
Yeah.
deserves that respect and show of love. So I hope that we keep that.
Totally. One of the things that I want to talk to you about before we bring in Dr. Alfie was another thing that we've talked a lot about, which is parenting, because I became a parent last year, and um,
Yay.
and we, you know, you were Seth and I, my husband and I, went to the flea market in Paris with Nicole, and and I remember having like one of the most kind of insightful conversations about what it was to be a parent, how much it takes, and I think it's been, I mean, it's been wonderful, and so and it's been such a powerful experience for me. But I also, you know, it was one of those things that I think I didn't realize how much it actually affects your mental health, because
Yes.
it is, you're giving so much to your family, to your child, that idea that you have to actually take time for yourself becomes even more important. And there's
Absolutely.
all of these
Yes.
feelings that I have, at least, like, well, I work during the day, I only see Emma, you know, a couple hours a day, and if during those couple hours I just need like even like 15 minutes to myself, where I'm not like either at the office or and working or in a fitting, or then, you know, at home and like cooking or playing with Emma, I feel like guilty that I want something
Yes.
for myself, because I
Yep.
feel I'm a bad parent and I'm not, you know, I'm not being emotionally engaged. Like, is that something that you've ever felt?
Definitely. And you know, I would say more so when my kids were toddlers.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell all my friends, toddlers was a really hard stage for me. I was pregnant I was pregnant at 25. I had no mom friends. My friends were living and loving and going to Vegas, and you know, I was the only one with a baby. And I just felt at times really alone. And you know, I love my kids so much, and I love, you know, I love spending time with them. But yes, we all get tired. There's nothing wrong with that. We all get tired, you know, following little kids around and repeating every word they say. And you know, and
Yeah.
I think like, because there, you know, because there is kind of such language around like, be with your kids all the time, of course. And the fact that, you know, and the fact that we work, like, yeah, you're like, okay, I only have 3 hours with my kid. Like, I have to spend every moment
Yeah.
with them. And if I need a break, like, I feel, you know, I feel so bad. And yeah, like, but there's just nothing wrong with that. And what I will say to you and anyone that has a toddler is, now that I have a preteen and a teenager, they know and they get it, and they're not saying to me, well, when I was 3,
Yeah.
you took away. And let me tell you something, my kids know how to dig something up. They know how to do it. And they've never used that once in their life. And that shows me that
Yeah.
it was okay if I took a little break. Because if it wasn't, oh, I know they would say something. So take it
That's
and
good.
enjoy it.
That's
And you got to be your best self in order to, in order to be the best mom, to be the best dad. Like, it is important that take a moment to yourself,
yeah.
so that you have the energy to really be there and to be present.
Yeah.
Because, especially now, we're on our phones all the time. And it's actually, if you think about shifting from work mode into home mode at such fast speed, that does feel really unnatural to think about just changing zones like that. Like, it actually really does make sense, just if you think about how the body works, how nature works, like, to have a moment to decompress,
Yeah.
push all the work out, make sure that by the way, sometimes I find myself coming home and I'm like this, just trying to finish the day, and I'm
Same.
trying to answer my kids, and I'm trying to answer my husband, and I'm trying to, and I have to say, it's no one's responsibility to tell me to just go and finish my email except for myself, right? So I
Yeah.
have to say, okay, hold on, guys, I'm going to finish this email, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be here with you. Because being
Yeah.
in two places, it just doesn't work for me.
Totally.
And it doesn't really serve anyone.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Great advice for a new parent. So I'm gonna bring in Dr. Alfie
Okay.
to conversation. I hope I know how to do this.
Good
But
luck. I'm so glad I don't have to.
she is a pioneering psychologist, a scientist, and author who focuses on self-care and empowerment for youth. Okay, give me a second. I'm very curious to hear what to say. Hi.
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 How are you two beautiful people? It's so nice to be with you.
Thank you for being with us. We're
Yeah,
good.
thank you
Of
so
course.
much.
I couldn't sleep last night. I was like, oh my God. I couldn't be on with them. They're amazing. They're amazing. So this is probably really bad that I'm such a fan, but I'm sitting here like, you don't need me. Nicole just ran it all down, right? So she's like, we're
Ooh,
Right?
done. We're done. She did it.
boom, we're done. Mic drop.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure.
I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts about some of what we've been talking about.
Sure. So 1 second. Sorry. I'm looking at this lighting and I'm like, ooh, you can't even see me. So for me, the most important thing I heard a lot of important things, but one thing I heard about self-care that feels like it would be really great to amplify is this idea of self-care is important and it's not selfish.
Yeah.
And I think for those of us, like, I'm looking at our faces and I know a little bit about both your backgrounds, and I'm clearly a Black woman. And I think there's this idea that, I think there's this idea that when you have any kind of intersectional identity, I think we're kind of taught it's not okay to like put yourself first. So I hear like a lot of young people, especially those who come from immigrant families. I was talking to somebody yesterday and she was like, your job is to work hard and like make this family proud. And so all this stuff about, oh, woe is me, like, we're not trying to hear that. And, I think in other communities, it's the same thing. So there's this idea that taking care of yourself is selfish. And I really want to echo what I heard you all say, is that it's not only not selfish, it's necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I know you two fly a lot. I don't know about how much now, but before it was a whole lot of flying. And every time you fly, I think they tell you, well, commercial flights, let me say it like that. They tell you the same thing every time. Put your mask on first before you
Yep.
help somebody else.
Yes.
And you have children, and so you can't help the kids if you're not well. So this idea
Yes.
of, like Nicole was saying, let me send this email and then I'll be with y'all. if you don't do that, then what happens is you're kind of doing this brain splitting thing. So just like you said, Joseph, if you're with the kids, you're thinking I should be at work. If you're at work, you're thinking I should be with the kids. And so
Yeah.
coming back to taking care of yourself by being present. Now, I also am a person who struggles a bit with anxiety. I have to be really honest about that. And so my thing is meditation. If I don't meditate first thing in the morning, mama is HE double hockey sticks on wheels, right? It's like, I just a handful. So that self-care piece and having the tools and really coming back to being present. I want to go back to one thing that you said, because as you were saying it, I just want to say, no, don't worry. But I know it's not that easy. When you're talking about being a business owner and, you know, what's going to happen on the other side of COVID and on the other side of quarantine. And I just would encourage you and say, a lot of us struggle with those thoughts, so it's not to minimize, but I find something that has really helped me is just coming back to the present. I say this as an anxious person. If I can just be here right now, it lessens my propensity for my brain to start doing that. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? You forgot that. You didn't do this. You shouldn't have said that. And you know what I mean? Like, what's the impact going to be in the future? So always coming back to, oh, I feel myself spinning. Right. So if you can see the floor, I have like 4 yoga mats over there. And I'm like always on my yoga mats, just trying to find my peace. So that was super long winded, but I just appreciate this conversation and the two of you being so vulnerable and open about how you,
love hearing that. I think
me
I
too.
to hear that. I think it's so, you know, it's hard. I think as you mentioned, it's like the way that at least I grew up in this idea that you have to achieve and that you can't be lazy and you constantly have to be kind of succeeding, that actually like taking a breath and letting yourself sort of take some time it's really hard to do without feeling like you're failing or feeling like you're you know that you're
it's true.
Yes,
it's true. And look who you are, look who you both are, right? So everybody on here, we know who you are, we know something about your backgrounds, what's out in the public sphere. And I think I can't imagine that pressure, right? Because there's always eyeballs on you. And so when do you get the time to just like be Nicole or be Joseph and just kind of sit and chill and be with your loved ones? Because people are always, well, what's the next thing? Well, I'm looking for you to do this. I'm looking for you to do that. When's that next bag coming out? What's going on with the next line? Right. And I was watching some of Nicole's videos, Nikki Fresh, and I was like, wish she had time to do all of that. So, there's so much. So I can't even imagine. So I think for all of us, there are all ways in which our lives kind of, maybe on a smaller scale, mirror that. Because there's people looking at you, you're beholden to people, you have family members, you have responsibilities. And I think it's just this idea that at the end of the day, what's most important is you. You two are most important. Everybody who's watching us, you are the most important person in your life. And it's never selfish to think of yourself in that way. You can better be present for others when you start there, right? They love you, your spouses love you, your kids love you. And so you got to love you, right? And I don't mean a lecture to just you all. I want everybody to hear me say that. Like, I got to say it to myself. I have to remind myself. And so that's a good place to start. Just every day I have this thing with mantras, right? And I say to myself things like, in every moment, I am liberated to choose. If I'm in a moment and I feel that stuff bubbling, I can stop and say, oh, I don't want to feel this right now. Let me choose another path so I can bring it down. And then then I can go do something to take care of myself. But you know what we do? You feel it and you feel like you got to push through it.
Yeah.
Go. And then it'll go away. And it almost never does. Like, sometimes it gets worse.
Yeah.
And I have found that when I don't give myself that moment to say to myself, I see you, it's really hard to get other people to see you because you're not even giving yourself that moment.
Y'all don't need me. Go ahead, Nicole. Go, girl. That's it.
You can call me Dr. Alfie Jr. But again, I say this not as an expert. I say this as somebody who forgets to do it all the time. You know what I mean? And so like, actually it's a rhythm that I'm seeing that is not, it's not easy. It's actually really easy to ignore yourself. It's actually super easy. It's really hard to give yourself a moment and say, Nicole, I see you. Joseph, I see you.
Yeah.
Just,
Totally.
you know, just letting you know. And then getting into that energy flow, then you go out into the world, and that's how you demand that other people see you. And that bleeds into parenting, because as your kids get older, your role as a parent changes, and you do need your kids to see you. You know, my parents were my parents, and I just thought they had the answers to everything, and I was really upset when I found out they were human. I was like, how dare you? I cannot believe you don't know the answer. I can't believe you can't get me out of this. Are you insane? What kind of parents are you? And so, you know, I do my best to really be as honest with my kids as I can and show them that I'm human, and I'm there to protect them as much as I can. But that's, you know, life is life. And I, you know, and actually what I am going to do is I'm going to see you, and I hope that you see me and know that you have me, and that we will be on this journey together, whatever that is.
Yeah, totally. And I, you know, I think that, you know, I was so happy that you were joining the call, because I think that one thing that was really that I wanted to really talk about during this, you know, during this conversation was how important it is to also seek help from professionals. Because I think that, you know, I grew up with, you know, very successful parents, and I felt like when, for instance, this anxiety and these panic attacks started happening, you know, I felt like I was seeking out, you know, articles or advice that were all about how can I sort of change my situation. So it's like, I'm not exercising enough, or is it that I'm like eating too much sugar, or is it that I'm, you know, on my phone, you know, too late at night, and you're basically like beating yourself up because you think that you're the cause for your own sort of anxiety and stress and panic. And I had a lot of shame about sort of seeing a doctor or seeing a therapist or a psychologist. And I think it really was a really big mental hurdle for me to sort of actually seek help. And it was incredible. I mean, it was incredibly helpful for me. I mean, you know, my doctor was basically like, you could have exercised more, you could have like gone to sleep an hour earlier, you could have done all of these things that you were beating yourself up about, but it wasn't really going to change anything, like, to get to the source of it. And I just think sort of also destigmatizing that relationship, and as Nicole was saying at the beginning of the call, and going also, you know, seeing that relationship with a therapist or a doctor, you know, as something that's healthy and that's important in your life, is something that I think is really important to say.
Oh, 100%. And I want to just like put a fine point on that, because everything that you said is truly perfect. And what else I love about it, and I don't want to forget to say this, is that what you two are doing, even in this moment, is, you know, what a lot of people call breaking those generational chains. You're altering the course, right? So if you don't want to call it chains, let's say altering the course, because the generations coming behind you, they won't be afraid of therapy, right? They won't be apprehensive about therapy. They won't be worried about coming to you two to talk about their mental health. Or my kids are not. I have a 14 and a 16-year-old. They're not worried about coming to talk to me, because obviously, because it's what mommy does, but as well because I'm always talking about how important it is. And so this idea of going to seek help, I love what you said about when you finally went and sat with the person, they told you all that stuff you beat yourself up about. That really wasn't going to change anything. And to me, that's the liberating piece, right? Totally. It's letting, you know what I mean? It's letting you know there are other ways to handle this. And, you know, it's not your fault. Like, we don't ask for I didn't ask for anxiety to be on one side of my family, like dug in deep, right? I did not ask for that. And so now that it's here, what I can do is I can work on it for me. So the person who helped me, I have to always shout her out. Her name is Dr. Maya McNeely. And I was the same way. I was like, this is what I do. I'm not going to see nobody. What are you talking about? Right? Like, I don't need no help. And then it was like, I had this, she was so lovely. She was a master's level social worker in MSW. And she was like, Alfie, I think you need to go. Just go talk to Dr. McNeely just one time. Go talk to her. And I went and stayed for quite a while. And it was the same kind of revelation. She just helped me see, Alfie, just because. So my thing was, I had this veneer. I think it might be a little similar. I had to be perfect because if I wasn't perfect, then people were I wasn't imposter syndrome per se, but it was sort of like, if I'm not perfect, then who am I in relationship to my friends and family? I'm the perfect one, right? So it's like, I have to do everything right. And so like putting that down and just saying, like, perfection is unique to each of us. There's no one way to be perfect, right? I'm perfection when I'm doing everything I can do to take care of me. And so if we can keep communicating that message to people and saying one tool for that, it's just a tool, is going to see a professional, and then helping them find professionals. Because some of the hurdle is also, they don't know where to look, right? And then when they start looking, they don't see anything that feels, I know part of your background is French. Look at me like I got 3 heads. My French is horrendous. I'm learning. But, you know, even if maybe going to speak to someone in French, right? That might be something that might have been important to you. But if you have a hard time finding a person, then it's sort of like, I don't know what to do. So we need 2 things. We need to be able to give people tools until they can get in with somebody. I'm talking easy tools, like apps, right? Like the Calm app, or like Breathe app, or like Meditate, or something like that, right? Until they have it within them to go see somebody. And then we need to tell them, here's where you go look to find somebody who might work for you. But keep telling the message, go use that as a tool. It's one tool. It's not your only tool. But your question is so well taken.
Absolutely. No, I thank you so much for saying that. I think it's so important. Well, I think this was an awesome conversation. I mean, I feel
this was so great, you guys.
Yes.
And I feel like you know, it was so exciting to me to be able to talk about all of this with you guys, with Nicole, with Dr. Alfie, and yeah, I feel like this was such a special conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Yes, same here. Same here. Y'all take care.
Sending love.
Oh, yeah, sending love to you too. All right. Bye-bye.